All right, so you've basically been saying that, the weather's beautiful is going to pretty much stay that way.
It is. We've got a nice little warm stretch on the way, so despite what the groundhog had to say about 6 more weeks of winter, I can tell you this work week ahead is going to be very much spring-like. This is the warmest weather we've seen so far here in 2025. Several days in a row where highs will be in the 70s. We do have a transition coming later into the week and into the weekend. That'll mean some rain chances, and you can see those temperatures gradually pull back.
All right, thanks so much, fellas. WAAY 31 gives you 24/7 coverage you can count on. Local news, breaking news, and severe weather. Don't go anywhere. LawCall is next.
This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon, Doviet. Tonight we're taking your calls. It's Ask Us Anything night, so call in your questions on everything from car accidents, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence. The 31 Law Call number, 256-536-0077. You can call in and be live on the air. You can also text us to that number, and we've got some text coming in. You can also email us a question any day of the week on any legal topic. You send it to lawcall@waaytv.com, and when we get to a show that's on point, we pull out some of your emails. We've got some of your emails tonight. We've also got Will League and William Messervy from Timberlake League and Brooks, personal injury attorneys.
Right.
So what does that mean that you cover? What does somebody call your office for?
Well, what we work on usually is litigation type, files. We have anywhere from 18-wheeler wrecks, car wrecks, premises liability, medical malpractice. Usually it's individuals versus insurance companies. And then we do a lot of workplace injuries. William handles a lot of workers' comp and workplace injuries, which can be kind of confusing. So call and, be brave. Call about ask us anything tonight. So ask about any of these topics if you want to. And William, with regard to the workers' comp, it's difficult to find a doctor. It's a difficult process, and it's been going on for a long time. What's the deal?
Yeah, it's a long story, as we say, but in large regards, Alabama's workers' compensation laws haven't been updated since the late 70s. And it's a statutory scheme. So unlike the other types of cases that we handle where we're following common law, which is precedent set by judges, we're following statutory law. And that binds us in some degrees to what we can recover for and what we can't. But if you're injured in the line and scope of your duties, you're entitled to certain basic benefits to include medical treatment, temporary total disability, which is typically about 2/3 your average weekly wage. And then, if it's a permanent injury, you're entitled to some sum of money for permanent partial impairment or permanent total disability. So those sort of confusing statutory words that are thrown around, but the short of it is simply that if you're injured on the job, they're going to owe you medical treatment, they're going to owe you most of your wages, and at the end of the day, they're going to owe you some sum of money, but that sum of money hasn't been updated since the late 70s. So even though the dollar's not worth the same, your injury sort of is, and it's
a very poor body of law, and so people working paycheck to paycheck, you get 2/3 of your wage. You get hurt, and now you and your family are surviving on 2/3 of your wage, and that was an agreement struck way back when, and it makes it difficult for the average, worker, and so that's one of the cases we work on, Sharon. A lot of it is motor vehicle wrecks, 18-wheeler wrecks, and things like that. So, it's a lot of litigation. Oftentimes, a lot of these cases resolve prior to trial. But, it depends on the insurance company, depends on the lawyers on the other side, what the facts are. And, sometimes you try those cases, sometimes they resolve.
We like to pull a piece of video and show you every week so that you make the law call. You take a look at something and what do you think the outcome would be? So in this case, we've got a vehicle on the interstate and they're going to be surprised by something coming down the road at them. If an object comes out of nowhere, I don't know if it looks like a big old tire probably off a big old vehicle, but
right.
When you see that, what are you seeing and what's important for you to figure out how to help that person recover? And it looked like their damage might have been pretty minor, but it could have been so much worse.
But what makes this case different from your typical automobile case is that you don't know the other vehicle.
Yeah.
There's not going to be an accident report that says this is from this vehicle and here it is. So this is what we often call a phantom motorist case in Alabama. And there's an Alabama Supreme Court case on point that says if you can make the inference that the item in the road came from a motor vehicle, then you can make an uninsured, underinsured motorist claim against your own full coverage if you have full coverage.
Okay.
If you don't have full coverage, you're going to be out of luck in a case like that.
You know, and oddly enough, I've had that case before, you know.
Like this?
A few times where a car, you know, wheel falls off, you know, sadly my client was blinded.
Oh, gee.
And came through the windshield. We're able to track down, and the question in those cases are, you know, can you find the other driver if that was an 18-wheeler. In the case that I worked on, you know, the car, you know, lost a wheel, but we were able to track it down to the repair shop that repaired that vehicle the day before, who did so negligently, didn't tighten down the lug nuts, and so we're able to make a claim against the other driver. But mostly it was the repair shop. That was the at-fault party. You know, is it reasonable for a driver to go behind the repair shop and check the lug nuts? You know, maybe, but who does that?
Who would do that?
Right. And so in the 18-wheeler world, you know, they have to have a pre-trip inspection. So let's kind of take that down a little bit.
18-wheelers are different from most other.
They are. And so, you know, you got the president, and then underneath the president, the Secretary of Transportation, who oversees Department of Transportation. You know, been in the news, NTSB, who investigates air crashes. Well, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration concentrates on heavy trucks. And the reason that is they're dangerous. They're heavy, a lot of death, a lot of destruction when those things go awry. And so under the regulations, there has to be a pre-trip inspection, unlike just your regular motor vehicle, to check all those things and make sure that vehicle is safe to put on the roadway.
Okay.
And so if it comes from an 18-wheeler, oftentimes you're going to find out who it is. If they flee the scene, you know, the police do a great job of tracking folks down, cameras these days. But again, the 18-wheeler company is responsible for the injuries and damage it causes, because again, they have a higher level of a pre-trip inspection than you or I do before we came to the station tonight.
Okay.
And so you'll go, and under the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration regulations, it calls for that pre-trip inspection to make sure everything is operable. You know, you got the blinkers, the brake lights, you know, everything. What about the air brakes? All those systems.
Tires, things like that?
Exactly. Make sure they're calibrated properly. And when William and I get in a case, we send out discovery to make sure they followed all the procedures, because oftentimes we find that these can be avoided. And if they fail to do the pre-trip inspection, you know, it's their vehicle. They're supposed to maintain it in a safe manner. And if wheel comes flying down the road, thankfully that looks like it's just property damage, but you never know.
Yeah.
It's surprising how often we find there is no pre-trip inspection or no documentation of a pre-trip
Even though they're supposed to do it every single time.
Right. You don't see, you know, with the tech these days, we'd catch them doing two sets of books. I mean, you got a driver there's hours of service requirements. You got a driver who's supposed to rest 10 hours in between each shift, and they're driving 20 out of 24 hours.
You know they're not doing right. Yeah.
And you know, you and your family going somewhere. We've had death cases, horrible injury cases, from the lack of following the DOT, the department's regulations. And so, it's a very regulatory climate with those 18-wheeler, you know, companies, and it should be, because of just the massive volume that's coming down the road. And you know, it causes issues, but again, you know, we handle those quite a bit, and there's ways to get in to find what they did, what they didn't do, and normally it comes down to an oversight or violation of the rules.
Okay. We've got an insurance-related question from Gloria and Ariel. So Gloria and Ariel work together. They both got cars. They both got insurance. If Gloria borrows Ariel's car for a trip while her car is in the shop, if there's an accident, whose insurance covers it? So, like if you and I were sharing vehicles, if I have an accident in your car, whose insurance covers that?
So the way insurance works is it's going to go first to the party at fault, okay?
Okay.
And so let's presume that third-party vehicle, hits Gloria. Is it Gloria's car?
Gloria is borrowing Ariel's car.
So let's say it hits Ariel's car. That's going to be the first car responsible in the line of succession of insurance, okay? Next in line is going to be on the car itself.
Okay.
Last in line will be the driver or any passengers that may be in the car. Now that's assuming the third party is at fault.
Okay.
If Ariel is at fault,
Okay.
then Gloria's insurance is going to be responsible, assuming that Gloria gave permission to Ariel to use the vehicle.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's a law school question.
Yeah, and we often find these cases where, let's say you got we've had several in the last few weeks, illegal immigrant, hit someone, flees the scene.
Okay.
And then the question is, did he or she have permission to drive that vehicle if it was not his or hers?
Okay.
And we go back to determine, was that vehicle reported stolen? And that's where it comes down to pass, because if it typically, we can show that there was permission, that they regularly use that vehicle or something like that.
Gotcha.
Was the vehicle reported stolen? And so we can deduce whether or not, because they'll claim it's stolen at some point.
Yeah.
And that usually comes down to those cases, and it comes into play.
Okay. We've got Wayne on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Wayne. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Oh, I was just wondering if the phantom motorist with the tire that hit the car is similar with you hitting a deer. If you have just
Yeah.
comprehensive, you'd have to pay for it yourself, but if you have full coverage, the insurance company will pay for your damage to your vehicle by a deer.
Yeah, right. I mean, your comprehensive and collision coverage. If you can't find the deer's, it's going to be
probably
difficult
gonna
to recover
find it.
from the deal. That's he's having a rough time being hit anyway. And likewise, if the other driver, you can't find the other driver, you can go now. As William correctly pointed out, underinsured motorists will cover you for your personal injuries, compensatory damages, and all the things that go along with that part. But if you're talking about just purely damage to your vehicle, you're correct. Your insurance company. Now, sadly, you will lose that deductible because you can't find the at-fault party. Similar with the deer, you'll lose your deductible, but they will come in and pay the value of your vehicle to repair or replace under the terms of your particular policy.
But again, that's only going to be if you have full coverage.
True.
Right? And what we see, unfortunately, too often is liability is the only policy required under the law.
Right.
That's really not going to protect you for injury or for damage to your vehicle. It's only going to protect the person you hit.
Gotcha.
Right? It's going to protect them, you from them coming after you after your personal assets. And a lot of times, folks say, well, this car was only worth $3,000, so I didn't want to, have full coverage on the car. But, full coverage protects so many incidents like that, and, you just don't know with drivers out on the road what's going to happen. And so it is important to have full coverage.
It's common for someone to come in and talk to me and William, and I just didn't need coverage. Look, all I needed was liability, and it can be crucial. You meet some, I met with a family in the hospital just the other day, horrible injuries, lifetime worth of care, and sadly, it was an illegal immigrant that hit them, and they had no underinsured motorist coverage. And so sadly, in Alabama, it matters who hits you. It matters what kind of insurance is there, what kind of liability. And I think they're going to, we could get a judgment against the defendant driver, but it won't buy a cup of coffee. And so you have to protect yourself against the unknown out there, who out there is driving uninsured. And sadly, William and I see it, time and time again. You see those commercials, only pay for what you need. No, man, you need full coverage. And you save that $30 a year, and it could cost you and your family significantly if you can't get your medical bills paid, and and keep things going while you're getting medical treatment. And it's tough.
And going to that point, 1 in 5 drivers in Alabama is uninsured. And then when you look at purchasing insurance, the most costly policy to purchase is the liability policy. And so, like Will just said, a lot of times you're not really even saving that much money. And so it's just something to look into if you haven't.
Well, and there's an extra step. Tell them about, you have to actually sign a paper to write that coverage off.
That's right. I mean, Alabama law protects it to a regard and says, look, you can not purchase it, but you have to sign a written waiver provided by the insurance company. And so there are times where folks, haven't paid for the policy necessarily, but the insurance company's unable to provide a written signed waiver.
So what happens?
In that instance, they have to provide a basic minimal policy of uninsured motorist coverage.
And that tells you just how important the coverage is, because the legislature have clearly put the rules into effect that say you have to disclaim this. It's so important. You're going to have to read something and sign something to disclaim, to negate that type of coverage. And a lot of people do it. And for a while we felt like insurance companies were pushing that. You don't need this, because again, the insurance companies are insuring against an unknown risk, and so it's in their benefit for you to waive that coverage. And so it's sinister,
Interesting.
really.
Interesting. Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. It's Ask Us Anything night. Stay with us and call in.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call. Your rights, your calls, live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League & Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of Attorney Michael Timberlake, Attorney Will League, Attorney Heath Brooks, Attorney William Messervy. And hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back. It's Ask Us Anything night. So we're taking your calls and questions on everything from car accidents to child custody things, and we've got questions coming in. You can call in. You can also text in the 536-0077 number. Okay, this text coming in. What happens if your homeowner's insurance company sends workers to your home and they make repairs, but 3 years later it turns out the work was faulty? Is the insurance company liable? What do we do with that?
Well, go ahead.
I think it's going to boil down to whether or not there was a warranty in place between the third-party contractor and the homeowner.
Okay.
So typically the insurance is going to pay to repair, right? They're going to pay that contractor to come out. But typically it's you who is going to hire that contractor, right? If they're going to be paid by the insurance company. And it will come down to whether or not there was a warranty. Now, if it wasn't built to code or something along those lines and you could prove it, then you may have something there as well.
Interesting.
You know, you get 6 years on, it's a contract claim, so 6 years to make that claim. And what's weird is the insurance companies don't cover work performed in an unworkmanlike manner. And so it would be on the builder. So it's really important to make sure that you've got a reputable company, they're bonded and insured. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but when things go south, just like in this case, you know, just like William said, if there's no warranty, the insurance company's not liable unless they failed to vet them in some way or there was some type of contract between the insurance company, but typically the contract's between you and the one who performed the work.
Okay, got another text question. How do I get an insurance company to address diminished value on my car due to an accident? They are avoiding me. Insurance companies like to do that, don't they?
Gap insurance.
Well, so diminished value, you know, when you're involved in a wreck, the property damage, if your car's repairable, all right, they're going to owe you repairs to your vehicle. They're going to owe you loss of use of your vehicle, and that's typically 2-3 weeks of rental car. And then they may owe you diminished value. So that would be, I was driving a 2025 Ford Mustang, and now I'm driving a once wrecked 2025 Ford
Yeah.
Mustang, and they're not worth the same. But if you're driving a 2006 Camry and, you know, it gets wrecked and you're still driving a 2006 Camry, you may not have a diminished value claim. It's probably going to be worth the same as it was before. So proving it can be difficult. And of note is that you only can make a diminished value claim in Alabama against a third party. So you cannot make it against your own insurance company in Alabama, which is interesting. So, you know, in those situations, typically an evaluation is going to be done. It creates some sort of a range. You can pay for them yourselves, but they're expensive. So you'd need a pretty significant diminished value claim. It'd need to be an expensive automobile.
Okay. We've got Gail on the line with a question from Hartselle. Hi, Gail. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes, hey.
Hey.
I don't hear you very good. I don't know why, but I don't hear you very good.
Okay.
Anyways, I lived in this apartment, and when I moved there, it was for seniors 55 and over, and it was based on our income, and it was reasonable, and it was very good for all the seniors that lived there. And anyways, this person bought them out, and when they bought them out, this man did. He just went crazy, money crazy. He raised the rent so high that we had to move. I moved right before Thanksgiving. We couldn't afford. He wants $1,000. He don't keep it up. He don't. All he does is keep the yard mowed. But other than that, it's run down. And and then what my question is, now when I moved out right before Thanksgiving. Now they want me to pay a month's rent. I did break my contract.
Okay.
Because I had to. I couldn't afford to stay at being there.
Right.
And but now they're wanting us, everybody, to pay that 1 month's rent, almost $900.
So, Gail, did you have a lease and they're trying to jack up your rent payment in the middle of the lease, or was this in transition that your lease ran out and they're jacking it up then?
Yeah.
At the end. Okay.
Yeah, you know, I mean, at the end of the lease, they can raise the rates, you know, because again, they're not bound contractually. About 10 years ago, Alabama came out with some landlord liability laws that gets a little more balance with the tenants and, you know, the landowners. But again, they can raise, as long as it's not during the term of the lease, they can raise it. Now, the question I've got is if it was set aside for seniors, if there's some sort of federal government or state program, then what's the parameters of that? So if you've got any type of section housing, oftentimes the government pays a portion of the rent, depending on what program that you're under. So if it's some sort of fixed rent scenario and that owner is outside of those bounds, that may give you a little more foothold to challenge laws like that. It sounds like you said it was at the end of your lease, and if it's the end of your lease, you shouldn't have to pay any penalty for leaving. You know, if your lease is up, typically it would go automatically month to month and give you the ability to move out any month unless you sign a new lease for a longer period of time. And so it doesn't sound like you should have to pay that if it's at the end of your lease because you haven't broken anything.
And we often see that, and particularly with the security deposit. And so they'll say, well, this is wrong or this is wrong, and so we're going to hold your security deposit.
Yeah.
But as Will was saying, the Alabama Landlord-Tenant Act sets specific parameters for when they can and cannot hold your security deposit, and it does induce some penalties for wrongfully holding on to it, I believe up to 3 times the security deposit amount.
Good. We've got Janet on the line with a question from Huntsville. Hi, Janet. What's your question tonight?
Yes, my question is, I have a question about homeowners insurance. We had water damage to our home, and the insurance company sent out workers to our home, and it created mold damage throughout our home because it wasn't mitigated properly. So my question is the insurance company liable for damages?
You know, they send somebody out again. The contract. They're telling us we get 30 seconds. So let me be quick, Janet. The insurance company sends them out. The contract between you and the person who fixed your home. If you paid them, and so there could be a breach of contract claim. The insurance company wouldn't be liable unless they failed to vet that person, or the contract was between the insurance company and the worker, or whoever did the faulty repairs.
Okay, we're going to take a break. Be right back answering more of your questions. Stay with us. If you didn't get your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Will League and William Messervy with Timberlake League and Brooks. They are personal injury attorneys, so car accidents, medical malpractice, 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com, and if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And our very own Sharon Doviet, child custody, divorce, all those family type law issues, 539-7337, SharonFamilyLaw.com.
Thanks for all your questions tonight. Everybody stay safe.
All right, good night.